Most people spend their entire lives running from something they can't name. They distract themselves with work, with relationships, with meaningless noise, all to avoid facing the one thing that always waits in silence: pain. Not physical pain, emotional pain. The kind you bury so deep, you forget it's there. But Carl Jung warned us, what you don't face will return. And each time it does, it comes back stronger. Pain isn't just something to endure. It's not something to silence. Pain is communication. It is the psyche screaming from the depths, trying to deliver a message that your conscious mind refuses to hear. And the more you ignore it, the more destructive it becomes. You may think you've buried it, but it seeps through. In your habits, in your fears, in your relationships. You call it bad luck. Jung called it your shadow. Your shadow is the part of you that holds everything you don't want to admit. Your rage, your weakness, your shame, your trauma. It doesn't vanish because you pretend it's not there. It waits, hidden in your unconscious, influencing everything. This is what Jung meant when he said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Think about that for a moment. What if the things that destroy you the most, your failed relationships, your self-sabotage, your inability to move forward, what if none of that is random? What if it's your own psyche sabotaging you because you refuse to listen to it? This is the essence of shadow work. It's not self-help. It's not positive thinking. It's war. Between you and the parts of yourself you're too afraid to face. And if you never face them, they win. The reason most people never change isn't because they can't. It's because they won't face the truth of their own suffering. Pain is uncomfortable, yes. But more than that, it's humiliating. It exposes the cracks you try so hard to cover. It shows you the lies you've told yourself for years about who you are, what you want, and why your life is the way it is. Carl Jung believed that unexamined pain is one of the most dangerous forces in the human mind. It festers in the dark. And while you distract yourself with pleasure, with routine, with ambition, that pain doesn't disappear. It metastasizes. It shows up as envy, as chronic anxiety, as the quiet bitterness you carry through your day. You don't scream, you sigh. You don't break down, you freeze. Because your system learned long ago, silence is survival. But survival is not the same as living. The pain you ignore is slowly rewriting the rules of your life. It shapes your identity without your consent. You start to believe you are your trauma. You begin to expect disappointment. You distrust joy, because to feel good is to be vulnerable. And you've taught yourself that vulnerability is a threat. So, you become numb, cold, strong by society's definition. But inside, you're at war, every day. And the enemy is you. Jung never said healing was easy. In fact, he warned that it would hurt more before it helped. To heal is to walk willingly into the fire of everything you've buried, to peel off the masks you've glued to your face, to question your childhood, your desires, your identity. He wrote, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain." Because to wake up, to become aware, is to see everything, especially the parts of yourself you swore you'd never look at again. And this is where most people run. Because facing your pain means admitting that the life you've built, the job, the relationships, the persona, may not be yours. It may be a fortress you built to avoid yourself. But here's the problem. No matter how high your walls are, your shadow still lives inside them. It doesn't need permission to act. It doesn't wait for your approval to whisper fear, shame, self-doubt. It just moves, silently, powerfully. The only way to stop it is to turn around and face it, not destroy it, integrate it. Jung's great insight was that healing doesn't come from defeating the darkness, but by learning to hold it. To understand that the parts of you that feel broken are not your enemies. They're unhealed stories, misunderstood signals, the language of a mind trying to return to wholeness. And if you ignore that pain long enough, it will take everything from you. Your peace, your clarity, your sense of self, until all that's left is the mask. Smiling, functional, and empty. And we are taught to run from pain, to medicate it, rationalize it, distract from it. Rarely are we taught to sit with it, to ask it questions, to let it speak. But Jung believed pain wasn't the enemy. Unconsciousness was. The danger isn't in what hurts you. It's in what you refuse to see. The wound is not the end of you. It's the start of your transformation, if you let it be. But most people don't. They numb it with pleasure, drown it in noise, or bury it under toxic positivity. Because real healing isn't glamorous. It's not Instagram quotes and meditation apps. It's raw. It's ugly. It's terrifying. To sit in silence and let the ache rise, that's where the work begins. Because in that moment, you stop running. You begin to listen. And when you do, you'll hear what's been waiting all along. Your true self. The one that remembers everything. The one that saw what happened and said nothing. The one that broke and never fully came back. The modern world hates silence. It fills your every second with distraction. But Jung understood that the silence you avoid holds the answers you seek. If you're always looking outward, for validation, for identity, for meaning, you will miss the voice within. And that voice is quiet. It only speaks when you're still. And most people are never still. But if you can find the courage to be still, to stop running, numbing, pretending, you begin to make contact with the very pain you thought would destroy you. And you realize it's not a monster. It's a message. The question is, are you willing to hear it? If this message resonates with something deep inside you, subscribe and hit the bell. This journey is just beginning. Most people believe their pain is a flaw, something to hide, to fix, or to be ashamed of. But Carl Jung saw it differently. He saw pain as a portal, a direct pathway into the unconscious. Not a curse, but an invitation. An invitation to confront the truth about who you are beneath the surface. Because that's what pain really is. An alarm. Not just that something is wrong, but that something essential is being ignored. But here's the paradox. The more you ignore it, the more control it gains over you. You suppress the anger, the sadness, the betrayal. But it never actually disappears. It just moves. It leaks into your tone, your decisions, the way you interpret everything around you. Pain doesn't need your permission to speak. It just changes its form. What began as heartbreak becomes mistrust. What began as rejection becomes self-hate. And eventually, you no longer know where the pain ends, and your identity begins. This is the shadow at work. Jung defined the shadow as the parts of ourselves we exile, the things we don't want others to see. But the problem is, when we exile those parts, we exile ourselves. You become a stranger to your own depth. You look in the mirror and feel nothing. You go through life acting, smiling, responding, but you're not present. You're managing the image, not living the life. And over time, that kind of disconnection becomes unbearable. You feel like you're breaking down, but in reality, something inside you is trying to break through. Jung believed the only way out is through the discomfort, through the questions you've been avoiding, through the silence that makes you uneasy. He didn't offer quick fixes. He offered confrontation. Because without confrontation, there's no integration. And without integration, there is no healing. When you meet your pain with resistance, it grows stronger. But when you meet it with curiosity, something changes. You begin to see it not as punishment, but as information. A code. A message from a deeper part of you that wants to be seen, heard, accepted. And if you ignore that message, you'll spend your life haunted by something you don't understand. There's something dangerous about unresolved pain, not just because it hurts, but because it reshapes your entire worldview. You start to see life not as it is, but through the lens of your wounds. You anticipate betrayal in every relationship. You expect failure before you begin. You stop trusting happiness, because deep down, you believe it's temporary, a setup for disappointment. And that belief doesn't come from logic. It comes from history, from wounds that never closed. Jung understood that when pain is not processed, it becomes prophecy. Your unconscious recreates the same situations again and again, not to punish you, but to wake you up, to make you finally confront what you've spent years avoiding. He wrote, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." Think about that. What if your suffering isn't fate, but feedback? What if the chaos in your life isn't random, but orchestrated by a part of you begging for attention? That part is not your enemy. It's your key. This is why Jung's approach wasn't about fixing symptoms. It was about understanding the root. The childhood memories you've buried, the fears you laugh off, the guilt you drown in distractions. He believed these aren't side effects. They're signals. And every signal ignored is a decision postponed. Every shadow avoided is power left untapped. Because that's the truth. Your pain holds power. Immense, transformative, terrifying power. Not because it feels good, but because it forces you to evolve. It shows you what matters. It strips away your lies. It humbles you. And if you let it, it will awaken you. But only if you're brave enough to face it. And most people aren't. They prefer comfort, certainty, numbness. They'd rather live a shallow peace than face the raw storm of their inner world. But there is no freedom in avoidance, only illusion. And illusions, no matter how beautiful, always collapse. The question is, when yours does, will you be ready to meet what's underneath? There comes a point where pain stops whispering and starts screaming. It disrupts your sleep. It clouds your focus. It sabotages your relationships. You tell yourself you're just tired, just stressed, just unlucky. But beneath all those explanations lies one truth. You've been running from yourself for too long. Jung believed that all neurosis is a substitute for legitimate suffering. In other words, when we refuse to face our real pain, we unconsciously create smaller, safer distractions. Anxiety, overthinking, meaningless drama, anything to avoid the real wound. But eventually, those substitutes break down. The distractions stop working. The noise no longer drowns out the silence. And what's left is raw, unfiltered truth. The version of you that never healed. That version doesn't want to destroy you. It wants to be acknowledged. But acknowledgement is dangerous. Because the moment you see your pain clearly, you can't unsee it. You can't go back to pretending. You can't blame the world, your parents, your ex, or bad luck. You realize it was never just them. It was you. Not in guilt, but in responsibility. The life you're living is not just something that happened to you. It's something you've co-created through every denial, every silence, every ignored red flag. This is the core of Jung's shadow work. Not blame, not shame, but radical ownership. You are not your pain, but you are the one who must decide what to do with it. Will you keep numbing it, burying it, weaponizing it against others? Or will you finally listen? Because once you listen, the healing begins. And so does the transformation. You become less reactive, more aware. You stop taking everything personally. You stop needing to control every outcome. You stop fearing the unknown because you've already met the darkest parts of yourself and survived. That's not weakness. That's power. And not the kind that shouts, the kind that radiates, the kind that moves silently because it doesn't need to prove itself. But here's the twist. Once you begin to heal, you will lose people. You will outgrow them, because the version of you that attracted them was born from wounds they recognized. And when those wounds begin to close, the dynamic shifts. You stop chasing approval. You stop tolerating what drains you. And that's where true loneliness and freedom begins. When you finally stop running, when you sit with your pain long enough to hear its voice, something strange happens. You stop fearing it. You realize that pain never wanted to punish you. It wanted to wake you up. It was never your enemy. It was the key. And once you hold that key, everything changes. You begin to live more honestly. You stop pretending. You stop needing to be perfect. You let people see you, not the mask, not the performance, but you. And yes, that vulnerability is terrifying. But it's also where real connection lives, where meaning begins. Carl Jung believed that true wholeness doesn't come from escaping the dark. It comes from walking into it, fully awake. When you can hold both the light and the shadow, that's when you become free. That's when you stop being controlled by your wounds and start transforming them into wisdom. But not everyone makes it that far. Most people will keep avoiding the silence, keep hiding behind distraction, because it's easier to numb than to feel, easier to blame than to look within. The path is there, but the choice is yours. So here's the question. Are you truly healing, or just getting better at hiding your pain? And if this question hit harder than expected, maybe it's time you ask yourself something deeper. Why are we so drawn to danger, chaos, and pain, even in love? If you're ready for that truth, you need to see what Freud had to say about desire, dominance, and why so many women are unconsciously drawn to dangerous men. Watch the next video. It might explain more about your past than you ever expected.